Perkins. In the first 2 minutes, and I know everybody knows you and a lot of people know you in the city of Detroit, but we want you to tell us in 2 minutes, who are you?
Well, first, I'm a father and I'm a husband. I'm a once widowed, twice married man who's also been a single father at one point in time. And by the way, I just happened to practice law in the city of Detroit for the past 28 years, which has spanned, yesterday I was in Iowa, so after having been in a trial for 3 weeks. So it really is a diverse, being a lawyer has been a real diverse experience, and being a Detroiter has been truly a joy. Having gone to school outside of Michigan, it was always my desire to come back to Michigan and make Detroit my home. And having been born and raised in Detroit, there's nothing more that I would like to do is to continue to serve Detroiters under the mantra, as I call it, well, not as I call it, but as I've been taught under the Jesuit tradition of men for others. As a student of UD, I tout them all the time. I know a lot of Cass Tech people tout their schools, and I like having that idea of competition because we're all seeking higher for each other, but our school taught men for others, and this is what this entire mission is about, and this journey is about, really about life. But at this point in this segment in my life, it's about being not only just the mayor of the city of Detroit, but the leader of this area.
Wow. So why do you want to be the next mayor of Detroit, and what qualifies you to lead this city, especially right now, because this is a critical moment for the city of Detroit?
Oh, it absolutely is critical. It's almost like I had the answers to the test right now because I segue into that answer. Well, right now, I'm in a position to do so. This is a city that has loved me and I've loved it back. And the best way of paying service to a city that I know and love is to serve as its leader at a critical time. You're right. We are at a crossroads. We are at a change in executives. But what I believe that I offer that's different than everyone else, beyond the experiences that I've had, beyond the very important aspect of being a lawyer, but is leadership. And leadership doesn't come by being elected. Leadership doesn't come by being appointed. Leaders just lead, and that's what I've done. And I believe that's what I will convey upon the city in a spirit of not only togetherness, but being included. I've always thought about inclusion rather than exclusion.
Tell me this, what do you think is the biggest difference Detroiters will see between your administration and Mayor Duggan's administration, because he's been in office for 14 years now?
Has it been 14 years? Wow. Okay, so what they'll see differently is that idea of inclusiveness. Because what you'll see, if you ask the majority of Detroiters, when they have time just to think, because everybody's so busy trying to live their lives, trying to work paycheck to paycheck, is that the idea that there's an inescapable feeling that they've been left out, an inescapable feeling that they weren't included in this particular process, or inescapable feeling that people like the majority are not having their seat at the table. What my administration will have is that, exactly that.
When you think about Detroit and you think about all of the corruption that has damaged this city before, and it's been a lot of it, what systems would you put in place if they elect you to become the next mayor to ensure transparency and to ensure that Detroiters can trust you?
Well, I'm a lawyer, and my stock in trade is transparency in most aspects. And because as a lawyer, you have to live in a certain ilk, you have to live in a certain life, and you have to have, and I have so many people who have trusted me in areas where they didn't know where to turn. And that's almost the same type of mechanism that you want to employ in the city, but one of transparency, one of humility, one of acknowledging if something goes wrong, let's just accept it and then find out the known quantity and know what happened and express that to people. Because there's so much that goes on, and it's almost like Father knows best, or don't do as I do, but do as I say. Those are the type of idioms, and those are the type of things that we cannot continue. And it also leads to areas in which you believe, or people believe, that it leads a pathway to corruption sometimes by just hiding certain things. We just cannot hide the things and the problems that we have.
Let's talk about education for a second. You're a product of Detroit. I know I heard you say U of D Jesuit. However, there are a lot of families in Detroit who want to go to DPS-CD schools or charter schools. How will you ensure, as the mayor, that our schools will educate kids in Detroit in a manner in which they can go to college, they can go to a trade school, or to other things?
So what I intend to do is I intend to, as most people should know, the city of Detroit administration, that being the mayor and the power structure within the city, doesn't go over and transcend over into Detroit public schools. That's Superintendent Vitti. But what we can do is acknowledge and overtly acknowledge our partnership with them, overtly acknowledge that we are here for you, and any overlapping services, anything that we can provide, whether it be after school things, prior to school things, and services that we are already providing as far as rec centers and things like that, to expand those particular programs to allow them to assist DPS in creating the great product and talent that we know is in this city. And again, education is something that my mom and dad always told me, no matter what they take away from you, they can never take away your education. And that's something that you see people, and I'll say this, and I know it's a little longer question. My dad used to, in the 40s, used to work in my grandfather's barbershop on Hastings Street. People would come in to that barbershop and could not read. I mean, some of these people were the products of slavery, but they would read out loud, and they would read, the president said today, big word, and it would be because he didn't know the word, but they were so proud of what they did know. And we've lost that sense of pride in education, and I want to get that back. And I want us to be proud of some kids having all A's rather than that not necessarily being cool. So there's a sea change that needs to happen, not only within the school system, but within us.
How will you bridge the divide when it comes to downtown Detroit and the neighborhoods, and especially between longtime residents who stayed the course of time in the city of Detroit and the newcomers who have come in?
Well, if anyone who has his ear to the streets, it's me. I know those people. I've been supported by those people. Those people continue to support me. That is really my stock and trade. That is the core of my business, is the everyday person in the city of Detroit. Now, my business has expanded to other areas, but I still listen. I still, from time to time, catch the bus. I still want to know what things are, what experiences that people have, so that I can understand what they're going through and try to have that empathy that I think is lost. People are sitting around telling people what they want and what they should do. What I do throughout my campaigning is I want to know what affects you. And so I want to know what happens to them. But again, you know, there's something called forced attrition. You know, understanding that this is going to be the way that things are done, that there is going to be a focus on those, on the sort of neighborhoods and the districts outside of Core City. But at the same time, we're not going to leave Core City to stop. We don't want this to stop. I mean, it is beautiful. And we're not going to here to take away or deride anybody for all its opulence. But there has to be some of that has to be that goes uptown.
If you are elected mayor, how will you ensure equity in city contracts, hiring, and services, especially for Black and brown communities?
Well, you know, there's an interesting thing with all this DEI that's going on and all the dismantling of DEI and all of the things that, you know, my daughter at one point in time said she wanted to go to Michigan because her mom went to Michigan, and now she doesn't because of what the dismantling and how they haven't stood up for it. And then you have Harvard now suing the president because of this whole idea of the dismantling of DEI, which, you know, that's another separate issue that it's disheartening to see. But what you can do and what a city can do, to the extent that someone says you can't focus on race, but you can focus on those who are residents. Because I'm focused on those people who live in the city of Detroit who are benefiting, whether they're black, brown, you know, yellow is your jacket. But that's who I'm interested in. And if you are, you're going to catch the swath of population and the population who deserves the attention. So if we focus on the residency requirements and things that have not been done in some of the contracts, the enforcements behind it. Now, there are things that there have been people who've declared that they're going to do things a certain way and that our city people, our city residents will benefit, but yet have not. those are the things that you put and you infuse into those contracts to force those things rather than say may, there'll be shall.
Let's talk about gun violence for a second, especially among young people in the city of Detroit. How will you address that? That's a major problem in the city.
Well, my primary issue, or my primary number one on my platform, is public safety. You cannot grow a city in which a city and people who don't feel safe. So all of the things that we're talking about and all of the great things that are happening we are still in the bottom tier as far as crime. We're still in the bottom tier as far as poverty. We're still in the bottom tier as far as education. So again, what I look at is having the idea of neighborhoods is one of the media or your colleagues have coined me the neighborhood mayor. And I do truly believe that the neighborhoods, you have to know from them, just like how I go out in the neighborhood, shop in the neighborhood, you want to know and hear, even if you're just listening to other conversations, you want to know and hear what affects people. The same thing goes with public safety. As talented as our law enforcement officers are, and I've been to cities all over the country and have interacted with police forces all over the country, and this Detroit Police Department, they're one of the best. But even they need the help and the ear of those neighborhoods. I'll give you an example. If you want to go into a neighborhood and you want to, a neighborhood that has, people might say, riddled with crime, you want to know who controls that block after 6 p.m. That neighborhood organization is not only going to probably know who those kids are, they know their parents, they know their grandparents, and they know a mechanism and they know a way of interacting with them that doesn't have to be acrimonious to start. And that's what you want. Because if people and young people are given options and young people are given opportunity, you're going to see a different action and you're going to see a different result from them. But I believe that they also feel left out. I know that they do. I talk to those young people all the time. It crumbles my heart sometimes when I go home after talking to some of them I'm talking to them after something has happened. So that's not a good thing.
How will you bring jobs to the city and ensure Detroiters are actually the ones who are getting hired?
Well, that's the same thing. That's an overlapping thing with contracts. You can build into your contracts that a residency component in there. There's already those things that are in contracts now, but it doesn't have a shall requirement, or you make the penalty for them not abiding by those terms and conditions of hiring them, make it so high that they'll make sure they'll take extra measures to ensure that Detroiters get those particular contracts. But I like how you said that question. So many people talk about creating or giving out jobs or creating jobs as a mayor. That's not what a mayor does. A mayor creates an atmosphere in which people want to come to the city, not only residents, but companies and corporations want to come to the city to build upon what's already here. The bones of this city are still great. As one lawyer termed it, Detroit is the jewel of North America. And I didn't see it 30 years ago when I was a kid, what he was talking about, but he's talking about the yesteryear that our parents were talking about when we were the wealthiest city in the world.
How will you address blight, abandoned properties, and basic city services in the neighborhoods? We know Mayor Duggan has gotten rid of a lot of blighted homes. Mm-hmm. I think he said the land bank started with 40,000, now it's down to maybe 1,000. How will you continue that?
Well, my focus is on building and also rehabilitating. I would enjoy seeing and focusing on rehabbing the properties that we have rather than continuing to destroy. Because what we're missing in the city of Detroit now, with all the growth that we have, what do you see in these new developments? These are not single family residences. Detroit is we're losing our internal, I don't even know how to say it, but we're losing that by losing out on the single family dynamic that we have. And if you grew up in the city of Detroit, you know what I'm talking about. And people who live and love in Detroit, if they go to other cities, that's what they look for. And so the multifamily units are usually studios and one-bedroom apartments. I'm looking to focus on rehabbing the current structures that we have, the ones that are able to be rehabbed, but then also building in those areas, because we have a land bank that has thousands upon parcels of property. And what I want to focus on is, again, going back to those neighborhoods and having them have a seat at the table. I have a much grander component, something called the community quarterback that I've learned. And in that idea of a community quarterback, you have, I'll give you an example. If you take a district and you have this individual who's a wealthy individual or a corporation who's going to come and be the sponsor for that neighborhood. And if you recognize right now, you have these districts in the Strategic Neighborhood Fund that have, the corporations have donated money. But I want much more from them, because our return on investment to them is going to be significantly more if they stay at the table. And when we stay at the table, what I want is an unwillingness to give up and a refusal to leave that table. Those are the two components, and a desire and a dream to build from that, whatever that neighborhood has to offer. Because some of these neighborhoods are sort of, as an artist, I look at them as empty tapestries, meaning that you can develop almost anything you want to do. But at the same time, you also have to feel safe. And that's why public safety is the #1 priority.
Because it used to be neighborhoods, you knew everybody on the block. Do you know what I mean? And people were proud to say that they belonged to this neighborhood or that neighborhood. And now,
it's not so much, and it's, we've had so many of us leave the city, and that's something we want them to come back. And, some of the things, I'm sure you're in your next questions, we'll get to them.
no, I do want you to do this, though. I want you to look into that camera, and I want you to talk to that single mom or that single dad who may be living on the east side of the city and their lights are turned off. They can't put groceries in the refrigerator, and they're in trouble, but they're looking to you as the new mayor. What's your message to them?
Well, my message to them is, 1, you matter. 2, we need to know who you are. 3, we're going to be in your neighborhood to let you know and have access to us, because I think, and I truly believe, that you don't feel like you have a voice. And if you have that voice, I believe that with every problem, there's a viable solution. And throughout this, the hallmark of my career is finding that viable solution. And I've been doing that for so many other people, and I intend to do that for you.
Final thoughts. If you could accomplish just one thing in your first year that would define your legacy, what would it be and why?
A sense of empathy, a sense of caring, the idea of leadership. What this community has was, we have elected officials, but no one really wants to announce themselves as a leader in that sense. And leaders don't have to be elected to be leaders. Just the things that I've done in my community, I look at myself, and that's something someone else says, that you're a leader. But I have so many people that have described me as that. I'm humbled by it, but at the same time, I'm continuing in my effort to serve them. I'm continuing in my effort for the idea of philanthropy, community service, because those are the examples that you want to carry on, because they can be infectious. And once you do it, then others who are even more healed or well-heeled than you are, they'll get involved. And then it becomes, it's like a ball rolling downhill. So the idea that of empathy also includes that idea of inclusion, because what I want to do is change the spirit of Detroit. Because I think once you change people's beliefs and and take away what they believe to be their limitations, you'd be surprised what you're going to get out of them. It would be beautiful.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Well, in this season, I'm having an awesome time meeting people that otherwise I wouldn't necessarily meet, that I'm seeing things that I'm going into different communities and going throughout the city where I've always been, but I have a different scope on what I'm looking at, and looking at how can we fix this? How can we advance the interests of the young people? Because I look at it as life for you and I is already set. Our trajectory is already set. We are here for the young people. And once we understand that what we do and how we operate, it is an example to them, it'll teach them that they matter. Just like I was telling people, that the person on the east side that you were talking about, those young people need to know that they matter, and you'll see a different side of them. I'll tell you this, every now and then I represent a young person who's in trouble. And I find out that they may even have access to resources and can buy certain things, and they don't even know how to tie a tie sometimes. But what I do is I take them and we go shopping, get them into a suit. Do you understand that their entire mindset changes when they're in that suit? Their entire disposition changes, and you see that individual sort of gravitate to something greater. And once you do that, you can move mountains.